Okay, I've got 6 o'clock right on the nose, so let's call our Water District meeting to order. And roll call, please, Miss Emma.
Director LaHue,
Hi, I'm here.
Vice President Lather,
I saw her.
Yep, she was here.
You did here.
thank you.
She's in the
Director
dark.
Jaffe,
I am right here on the computer.
Director Christensen,
Here.
and President Daniel.
I'm here as well. All right, so that's our roll call. There's no public hearing tonight. That's item 2. Item 3, announcement by board members of items to be removed from consent agenda. So, let's see. Tom,
I have none.
Rochelle,
Nothing. Oh, wait. Which item was that? The one about the upgrade. No, forget it. I don't have anything.
okay. Jaffe,
Keep looking at yours. That's why.
Mr. Jaffe, you're on mute. Bruce? You're going to have to unmute yourself. One of the difficulties of Zoom. Mr.
Let me
Jaffe?
see if I can unmute him.
Okay. There he goes.
Yeah, nothing
Okay.
to pull. Thank you,
Okay.
Emma.
Marla?
No.
And I have nothing as well. So that means all items are up for consent.
Full move approval of consent.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
That was Carla. And so roll call, please.
Director LaHue,
Yes.
Vice President Lather,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes,
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Daniel.
Yes, as well. So we're done with the consent agenda. We now go to the oral and written communications section, number 5. So do we have
I
anyone?
got a question.
Yes.
On
Carl?
4.0 of the consent agenda, Becky Steinberger requested an opportunity to speak on 4.0.
There is
She
no.
has not joined the meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
fine. That's fine.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And there is no 4.0. There's a 4.11.
I know, but last time she spoke at 4.
Okay.
Yes, Director Christensen, yeah, we would have called, but Ms. Steinbrenner hasn't joined yet. We'll make sure when she joins, we honor her requests on the balance of the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so oral and written communications. Is there anyone waiting for this, Miss Emma?
Not on the meeting at this time.
Okay, so we go on. Any director comments? I don't see anyone raising hands. Okay, so given that, we'll go on to the reports. District Council oral report. Do you have anything?
No report from me. Thank
Okay.
you.
Item 7.1, unconditional and conditional will serves. We have none of those, so we go on to item 7.2, consider adoption of resolution 20-25 about the pure water Soquel. Staff report.
Hi, yes, good evening. Item 7.2 began actually back in August of 2018. August 18th of 2020, when the board approved the signing of the purchase option for the Provision Glass Shop located at 2455 Chanticleer Avenue. At that meeting, the board directed staff to return to a future meeting and when we wish to exercise our purchase option. And at that time, we would need to do the CEQA review and analysis of that project. As part of that effort, then tonight we come back and the district has prepared the environmental analysis of the new parcel, the Provision Glass site. We've also included some treatment processes and facility layout modifications. We also have prepared the purchase agreement as an attachment as well to the CEQA addendum and the resolution. Tonight, Ashu Shirakar with Black and Beach, Elisa Moore with ESA, and Charity Schiller with BBK will be assisting on this agenda item, with Elisa and Charity doing a short presentation. Elisa?
Thank you, Ms. Schumacher. I think I will start. This is Charity Schiller. Good evening, President Daniels and honorable board members.
Good
My
evening.
name is Charity Schiller and I'm from your legal counsel's office. And I'm here tonight to address the issues that are before the board. Could I have the next slide, please? Could I have the next slide, please? When we get there.
Sorry, I'm not sure why it's not sharing. I'm gonna have to do a new share. 1 second.
That's quite all right. We don't
There
necessarily.
we
need to- Okay, thank you. I wanted to provide a brief overview for the benefit of the public regarding the scope of the item that's before the board this evening. This item includes consideration of a CEQA addendum to its previously certified environmental impact report for the Pure Water Soquel project, and the consideration of minor modifications to that project along with the purchase of real property. And those modifications will be summarized in greater detail momentarily. But perhaps what is most important to clarify is that the board is not being asked to recertify the existing EIR or to reapprove the original Pure Water Soquel project. Those actions were taken long ago in December of 2018, and those approvals remain in place. The scope of any potential action tonight is much narrower, and it includes only whether to approve certain minor modifications to the previously approved project. As is very common throughout California, capital projects can and often do change in small ways after they have been initially analyzed and approved. And it is precisely because detailed analysis and extensive public review for the overall project have already occurred through the EIR process that the scope of the analysis in the addendum before the board is focused only on the changes to the Pure Water Soquel project. Now, CEQA confirms that an addendum, unlike an EIR, does not need to be separately circulated for public review in advance of any board action on it. And again, the addendum is not required to reanalyze the project's impacts. That was already done as part of the original EIR. With that scope in mind, and to go through the proposed project changes and the addendum in more detail from a factual perspective, I would like to pass the discussion over to the district's environmental expert from ESA Consulting, Elisa Moore.
Good evening, how are you today? As mentioned, I'm going to walk through the addendum and its content and just give you a bit of an overview. Everyone has a copy of the addendum in their board packet. I hope you've had a chance to enjoy it. The addendum includes a background and purpose of the addendum, a project definition, and the discussion of the environmental effects associated with the project changes. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more background and reiterating some of what Charity mentioned. The district has certified the Pure Water Soquel project EIR and approved the project on December 18, 2018. And when that occurred, the project began their planning and advanced design process, which continued throughout 2019 and 2020. And through that process, which commonly occurs, some modifications were identified that would benefit the project moving forward. And notably for this evening is that the parcel that is adjacent to the Chanticleer site became available. It has existing building and parking. Incorporation of that parcel into the project would replace the need to build a new operations and education center at the Chanticleer site. In addition, some treatment process and facility layout refinements were made to both the Santa Cruz and Chanticleer sites, and we'll talk about those in a bit more detail. Before doing so, I did want to mention that the modified project would be subject to all of the mitigation measures that have been approved for the project overall. Next slide, please. So briefly, this is the Chanticleer site, and then in blue, you'll see the new parcel that is subject to part of the modified project. Next slide. And then in terms of treatment process modifications, the overall modifications are the addition of nitrifying biological aerated filters, or NBAF, as a pre-treatment step. That would be located at the Santa Cruz site. The addition of the NBAF pre-treatment would remove nitrite and ammonia from the source water and improve the long-term optimization and efficiency of the overall treatment process. In adding the NBAF to pre-treatment to the Santa Cruz treatment facility site, that required some accommodations and updates to the overall layouts at both sites to shift some of the treatment elements over to Chanticleer based on space availability at the Santa Cruz site being limited. In addition, we have added a consideration of a sewer lift station and additional pipeline to the Chanticleer site in order to connect to the county sewer at 17th Avenue and Soquel Avenue. Next slide, please. So very briefly, we'll show you the differences between the original plan that was analyzed in the EIR and in the modified plan. And these are included in the addendum, so you'll be able to see them in you've seen them in greater detail. Excuse me. The site at Santa Cruz that has been allocated to the Pure Water Soquel project is a fairly small area. And this project modification would slightly expand the work area for the Pure Water Soquel project and include mostly NBAF treatment at this location. Next slide. And on the left side here, you'll see the site plan that was approved for the Pure Water Soquel project and the parcel identified that is being considered for inclusion to the project. The modification to include that parcel puts the learning center and operations center at the new parcel and allows the district to rearrange some of the other accommodations within the overall parcel as well. And so now you'll see there's kind of a centralized building. The other thing I'll note is that the frontage area of Soquel Avenue has been shaded out. This is an area that the Santa Cruz transportation organization would like to build their pedestrian overpass. So if the district comes to agreement on that, the landscaping that is seen along the frontage road would not be needed or would not be needed immediately until that is the agreement with the county is worked out. Next slide, please. So the project change analysis and the addendum, it walked through all of the resource topics that are required under CEQA and came to conclusions about each one by presenting a summary of what was considered in the EIR and the conclusions that were made in the EIR, and then discussing the project changes relative to the consideration and conclusions made in the EIR, in particularly focusing on the significant impacts that were identified in the EIR and whether those were changed by the modified project. For most topic areas, there weren't substantial changes to the impact analysis based on the type of modifications that we're talking about, but there were a few key topics that do merit a little bit further discussion. And I'll preface this by saying that with the revision to the treatment facility layouts, in particular, and the addition of the NBAF, the overall construction requirement together for the entire project would increase somewhat. And so we very carefully looked at the air quality, energy, greenhouse gas emissions, and noise considerations from both construction and operations from those changes. For air quality, we had a significant impact related to NOx emissions in particular that required mitigation, and the impact was determined to be less than significant with implementation of that mitigation at the EIR level. The NOx emissions would still require mitigation, but is actually a reduced emission number than what we considered in the EIR. The EIR actually had some conservative assumptions that were made at the time that are no longer applicable. And by analyzing the entirety of the project, we actually have a lessened NOx emission. The construction cancer risk was less than significant in the EIR and still is less than significant with these project changes and is well below the impact threshold. Similarly, our energy and greenhouse gas emissions impacts were less than significant in the EIR and would remain less than significant with the modifications. Groundwater quality was less than significant in the EIR. The quality of the advanced purified water with these modifications and the addition of NBAF would be the same or better as under the approved project. And finally, noise would remain less than significant at the Santa Cruz wastewater treatment facility for construction and operations. The Santa Cruz project site for Pure Water Soquel is within the overall Santa Cruz wastewater treatment facility and is pretty much at the, I'm doing my north-south on the fly here, the farthest away from the residential areas that are adjacent and across the street from the treatment facility. So the construction and noise associated with this project is pretty much in the background of the existing treatment facility. At the Chanticleer site, we took a close look at the construction noise as well as the operational noise that would occur associated with the rearrangement of the facility and where the loudest operational pieces of equipment would be, which would be the pumps. The construction phase will still require noise mitigation the same as the project and wouldn't be any louder than what was anticipated in the EIR, and the operational phase would remain less than significant as occurred under the EIR. So thus, in conclusion, we have determined that none of the modifications to the approved project result in new significant effects or substantially increase the severity of significant effects that were identified in the EIR. And an addendum is the appropriate form of additional CEQA. Charity?
Thank you. Could I have the next slide, please? The resolution that is before the board tonight, Resolution 20-25, would do several things if adopted. It would adopt the CEQA addendum to the previously certified EIR for the Pure Water Soquel project. It would approve the purchase and sale agreement for certain real property, and it would approve the minor modifications to the previously approved Pure Water Soquel project, which Ms. Moore just summarized as part of her presentation. Next slide, please. Motion sensitive lights, sorry about that. But before we get to any board discussion or potential motions regarding the resolution, it would be appropriate for the board to first hear public comment. Now, just to set the stage for any public comment, I should clarify that the public comment portion of the meeting tonight is for the public to provide their comments and feedback to the board. As such, the board is not required to engage in dialogue or to answer questions from the audience. President Daniels, I am uncertain whether the district has received any requests to speak on this item, but it might be an appropriate time to call for those if there have been requests.
Right.
We have not received any request to speak on item 7.2. However, Ms. Steinbruner asked to speak on item 7.1 earlier today, which is the will serves. And so I believe President Daniels was going to ask if she meant item 7.2, since there were no will serves.
Right. So is she online?
Becca, can you unmute Ms. Steinbruner, please?
I just did.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner.
Before you start, you sent in a request to speak to item 7.1, which is the will serves, which there are none. Was that a mistake on your part?
I appreciate your catching my error. That was sent late, and I did mean to ask to speak on item 7.2.
Okay,
May I
let's
please
get going
speak
then.
on this item?
Let's get going then.
Thank you
7.2,
very much. I appreciate it very much. My name is Becky Steinbrunner. I have in fact just sent you a notice that if you approve this, I will be forced to take further legal action to challenge this action on the grounds that you have not provided in the document a clear and thorough analysis and explanation of why you are not doing instead a subsequent EIR and instead doing an addendum that does not allow for public comment or review under CEQA. You can cure and correct this by doing a subsequent EIR. However, as I interpret it, the California Coastal Commission will need to be the agency that conducts that analysis because you have already certified your final EIR, and the California Coastal Commission is the next public agency to take discretionary action on the project. I would take this action on the grounds that you never did in the final EIR or anywhere in the CEQA process for the project itself include the Live Oak community in the noticing, or you did not provide written notice 30 days in advance of certifying the final EIR. You can cure and correct that now by doing a subsequent EIR and sending all schools within 1/4 mile of the project. There will be hazardous chemicals stored at the site. Your document states that itself. You can cure and correct your original problem here today by instead doing a subsequent EIR and asking the California Coastal Commission to do it. Your modified project includes very large tanks, a 9,300 gallon tank above ground with caustic, totes above ground. The disturbance envelope will increase by 47.
okay, so I think that's the only public comment that we have. Is that true, Ms. Emma?
Correct. There's no further public comment.
Okay, so let's see where we go now. Does staff want to do anything at this point special?
President Daniels, if I may, again, this is Charity Schiller. I know that staff, legal counsel, and the district's EIR consultants were listening very carefully to Ms. Steinbrenner's comments.
Yes.
And I'd like to thank her for her thoughtful remarks. We also should note for the record that Ms. Steinbrenner did submit comments, written comments, in the form of a short email that was submitted to the district after this meeting commenced, which is why the board has not had an opportunity to review that in detail during this meeting. Because of that, I would like to briefly summarize and respond to some of her comments, and Ms. Moore may have a few additional thoughts on the factual side of things.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So first, the district is the appropriate lead agency here for the purposes of the addendum. Pure Water Soquel is the district's own project, and CEQA confirms that even where other agencies may need to issue permits, such as the California Coastal Act or other agencies that may or may not be involved here, the district will be the lead agency for its own projects. So that point is very clear under CEQA. Ms. Steinbrenner mentioned certain concerns regarding the prior EIR. This board will recall that that environmental impact report is now beyond challenge. It was approved, certified, I should say, in December of 2018. Litigation against the district was commenced and the district prevailed in the trial court. So there is no need at this point to go back and take further action with regard to that EIR, and that is not before the board this evening. With regard to Ms. Steinbrenner's email, it generally alleges, as she stated in her verbal comments tonight, that a subsequent EIR is required. She alleges that certain chemicals, which will be used in the treatment of water, will be stored on the site in a method that results in impacts. She asks questions regarding the slight increase in the number of construction truck trips. She makes allegations that lighting and noise impacts were not necessarily fully accounted for. She asks for clarifications regarding the site plan layout and ultimately asks the board not to approve the project. She also states in her email, as she noted in her comments tonight, that she is threatening litigation against the district to the extent that an approval proceeds. Each of these factual issues have been discussed in the addendum, and Ms. Moore summarized many of them in her presentation tonight. However, I would like, with your permission, Mr. President, I'd like to turn to Ms. Moore and ask her if there are any factual clarifications that she would like to add at this time.
There are no factual clarifications I would like to add at this time. I will say that the email topics that were mentioned by Ms. Steinbrunner do not raise any concerns or issues that were not addressed in the addendum. They mostly concern impacts that were determined to be less than significant in the EIR and remain less than significant with the modified project.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. For the board and for the public, that is the hallmark of why an addendum is appropriate as opposed to a subsequent EIR, because the analysis in the addendum shows that there are no new significant impacts and no substantial increase in previously identified significant impacts. Thus, based on the addendum and the analysis in the record and other documents in the record, we believe that the addendum fully complies with CEQA and that the conclusions in it are fully supported by substantial evidence. With that, President Daniels, we are ready to turn to the board for any questions that you may have or alternatively potential motions.
I want to clarify one thing. This so-called email we've gotten from Becky did happen after we started. And so it's not the case that we have not had detailed analysis and study of it. We haven't seen it at all. We have had no time because we've been meeting. So zero consideration of that because it appeared too late. Okay, so do any of you have comments or questions? Let's start with Tom.
I would say a couple things. One is, it took some time to read through the memo and the addendum and then go back and revisit the EIR, but I really appreciated how you guys set up what the differences were and focus on those, and that those were all determined to be less than significant. So just thank you for all that work. I can tell a ton went into that. No particular questions though.
Okay. Rochelle?
I have no questions also. I did go through the whole thing and it was very thorough. I was thinking that ESA has been doing an excellent job for us as a district. I see these kinds of documents all the time at my day job, and I appreciate that.
Okay. Mr. Jaffe?
I read the addendum thoroughly, paying particular attention to when is a new EIR required, and I'm satisfied that a new EIR is not required. Although there are some changes, they don't, because there was, for instance, in greenhouse gases, or we were below the threshold of significance before. The additional changes don't put us into significant impact. So I think it's a solid EIR, and I appreciate the efforts of ESA and staff on putting this together. Not an EIR addendum, solid addendum.
Okay. Carla?
Carla, you may be on mute.
Got it. Sorry.
Okay.
I did that to cut the noise back. I reviewed carefully the justification and analysis of when an addendum is appropriate and when an EIR is required, and the things that we're the main the main motion that we're considering is the purchase of the property, and that even that is less of an impact. I feel like all three of the items that we're considering in the addendum fall into the requirements for an addendum rather than an EIR, and I thought it was a very well prepared document and very clearly written, and I have no qualms about voting for it.
Okay. Well, as for myself, I think it's great that state law has put in place a mechanism by which we can take an already good project and make it better while still not having to start all over again and incorporate those changes into the existing project and the existing EIR. And I think it's also quite clear that in many ways, this project has reduced impacts versus any increase of things. And it still remains below any significant impact. And that's great. And I think that makes it very clear that this clearly qualifies as an addendum and not anything else. And I'm really happy to see that. And I'm completely for it. Tom?
President Daniels. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to thank the staff too for all the work they put in, and also in the work to acquire the property, because that just makes so much more sense to use an existing building for a learning center and operations center. And I know, Ron, you had something to say, but I would like to make the motions, all four motions.
That was Tom.
I'll
Ron, do you have?
second.
Yeah,
Carla
Charity.
second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Carla seconds. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, before you vote, Cherry, did you want to add anything? I just was curious.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify for the board. We understand that the board did not have the opportunity to read Ms. Steinbrenner's email because it was submitted after the commencement of the meeting tonight. But I would just note that staff and your consultants, while we are all have access to our emails, that we did read it very carefully, and we do concur that it does not raise any issues that have not been fully analyzed in the addendum. So
It seemed like it, yes, from her comments, right. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Director LaHue,
Yes.
Vice President Lather,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Daniels.
A very strong yes. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this. And it's nice to see we're moving ahead still. Great. So now we go to item 7.3, a ratification of an MOU with us and the
President, so
Yeah.
did we voted on all the different motions?
that was all four of them that I heard.
Okay, just wanted to
Isn't that
clarify.
right, Tom?
Yes.
Yes, I thought so. So we're done with that item unless someone else has something to bring up. Seeing none, we go to item 7.3, ratification MOU between us and the SEIU.
Good evening, President Daniels and board. I wanted to present to you tonight that the district has met with SEIU's bargaining team. SEIU is the largest employee in our organization, SEIU Local 521. And SEIU proposed actually to extend the term of the existing memorandum of understanding, which expires in January of 2021 for a period of 2 years. And we had a tentative agreement at our meeting on the details of that extension, which are presented to you in the memo tonight and in the resolution. On November 10th, SEIU took it to their membership, who voted to ratify the tentative agreement as presented to you tonight to extend the terms of the existing MOU as a successor labor contract for the term of February 1st, 2021 through January 31st of 2023. And so we're asking the board tonight to consider adopting resolution 2026, which would ratify on the district side, the tentative agreement between the district and SEIU Local 521, and authorize the execution of the newly extended MOU with the terms identified in the memo and in the resolution.
Thank you. I believe we have no public comment on this item. Is that true?
Correct, there's no public comment.
Okay, so directors, Tom, do you have any questions or comments?
No, just I think it's really great that they wanted to extend this for 2 years. It's great.
Rochelle?
No comment.
Okay. Mr. Jaffe?
It is, I think, appropriate in these times to cooperate, and the extension signifies that cooperation. And also like to indicate just the appreciation I have for our field and office employees. They do a great job.
Ms. Carla?
It's very nice to have some continuity while we get through the chaos that is caused by this pandemic. And I really appreciate the effort that's gone into just keeping the ship steady and for all the employees. And I think it's a very good thing.
Okay. I think it couldn't come at a better time. We have so much going on in the district, both at the board level, at the staff level, at the consultants level, to have 2 years now guaranteed continued work and no disruptions or upsets. That is wonderful. And I would like to thank the union for agreeing to this. In fact, I think they came to us with a suggestion that we do this, and that is really wonderful. So I think it's superb. Anyone wish to make any motions?
I'll move. Let Rochelle can do it. I'll second.
Okay.
All right, so Rochelle gets the motion and Carla gets the second.
Yay.
Roll call, please.
Director LaHue,
Yes, and I just wanted to say that it says a lot about the organization as well and the leadership. So yes.
Vice President Lather,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Daniels.
A hearty yes. So that's really wonderful. Okay. Yep. Thank you, everybody. So we now move on to item 7.4, which is there.
Hi, good evening.
Yes.
Good
Melanie?
evening, board.
Mhm.
Item 7.4 is for the board's consideration of approval of scope of work and budget for some additional assistance on the Pure Water Soquel project. Back in June of 2020, we did approve the ESA contract for environmental services. And prior to that, in March of 2020, staff brought forward and the board approved design services for the treatment facility project with Black & Veatch. As we've undertaken further implementation of the project, we do have some additional scope on both of these contracts, as well as a reduction in scope that has initiated contract amendments for both of these firms. Specifically for the ESA contract, we did have a removal of a task related to some environmental assistance on something that is no longer needed now that we had some further design on the pipeline project. And then as you can see, we also have some additional effort related to supporting the evaluation of the provision site, both from the land and for the purchase, as well as for the preparation of the EIR addendum. For the Black & Veatch contract, we also had a reduction in scope related to not needing design work on the Chanticleer site. We did have some additional design work on one of the membrane buildings. And then we also had some additional design work related to needing some additional infrastructure for the sewer point connection, as well as design for the NBAF pretreatment at the City of Santa Cruz's wastewater treatment plant. So the contracts amount that we have for this agenda item have been included in the fiscal year budget. So we are just asking the board's consideration of approval of these two scopes of work for Black & Veatch and ESA.
That's the staff report. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, there is one public comment.
Okay, let's go to that.
Ms. Steinbrenner, you're now unmuted.
And
Hello,
yes,
this
we can
is,
hear you.
hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Thank you very much. I just want to register formal protest of this increase expense and scope of work with ESA and Black and Veatch. I think, well, I understand why you have to do the additional treatment. I again oppose the project. I do support using the water for irrigation. I do support using recycled water for irrigation. I am opposed to injecting it into the aquifer, and that is my main protest in this. And I hope that you will listen. And I am worried that the amount of chemicals that will now have to be dosed into the water as it travels 5 miles from the treatment facility in Santa Cruz to the treatment facility at Chanticleer will have higher levels of chemicals in it. Thereby, if it leaks, say going under the San Lorenzo River or is crossing any of the streams that the conveyance system is planned to cross, it will cause great environmental damage. And I don't think you're hearing that. I don't think you're understanding that. And so for that reason, I oppose this project. I oppose this additional money. And your ratepayers are already heavily burdened financially. Many of them are struggling to pay their water bill now, and this will only add more financial burden to their already very high rates. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay, back to the board. So, Tom, do you have anything to question or add?
Nope. I do not.
Michelle?
I do not.
Okay, Mr. Jaffe?
So the amounts are the existing contract plus the modification.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't clear in the motion to me.
Well, I think the motion talks about the total after the fact cost, which in some cases is not a big change, but still, that's what we're going to spend.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the amounts are a fraction of what those numbers are.
Correct.
Small fraction. Okay.
Anything else?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. And Carla?
I don't have any particular questions. It looks like the costs are reasonable and justified. I think it's necessary to keep the project moving forward, and I support it.
Well, I second Carla's comments, and I think it's good. Anyone want to?
I'll move to approve both 1 and 2.
I'll second.
Oh,
Oh man, we're all jumping in.
Rochelle got one. Just give it to Rochelle. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Roll call, please.
Director LaHue,
Yes.
Vice President Lather,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
yes.
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Daniels.
That makes it unanimous. Thank you, everybody. So let's see, we pulled nothing, so we have nothing on here. I think the next item is going to a closed session.
Can I make one quick comment? I forgot to mention at the beginning that the MGA meeting is this Thursday at 7 p.m. That's all.
Right. Okay, do we have any comment on the closed session?
Yes, we have one public comment.
Okay. Let's get it over with.
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, if she is still on the line, I would like to say hello to Ms. Schiller. It's nice to hear your voice. We've been doing some communication in the process of the legal work, so I just want to say hello. I cannot see you. I'm on telephone only. I do want to point out that your board completely disregarded the legal action that is in the 6th District Court of Appeal regarding your certification of the project's final EIR. I was not allowed to amend my complaint by the judge, which would have brought into focus the very real problem that the district did not send written notification to schools 30 days in advance of certifying the EIR. But it is a problem, and it is especially a big problem now because of the project modifications. And you again are choosing to disregard the schools nearby to notify them of these hazardous chemicals, and you're disregarding the Live Oak disadvantaged community. Your board correspondence has had regular additions from people in Live Oak since January of 2019 that they knew nothing about this, and they're very angry. And again, you have chosen to disregard an opportunity to cure and correct that problem and be a better steward of the environment and a better neighbor with the people. I do believe that the respondent's brief is due to be filed. Perhaps it has already been. I haven't been on the computer much except right before this meeting, and I apologize for the late notice, but that was the best I could do with my internet capability.
Thank you.
Thank you. The board meeting adjourned at 7:10 p.m. There is no reportable action.